West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est long, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
We do have breaking news. In 24 hours, just the past 24 hours, this president has vetoed pay for the military, stalled relief for millions of you, and issued the most toxic tally of pardons we have ever seen. 26 new Trump pardons tonight. Gifts to many convicted criminals that you know well, who did horrible things. Many admitted it. And then he left to go golf in Florida. After vetoing pay for the military, after leaving relief in limbo, millions of Americans don't have food for Christmas, let alone money for heat or gifts. And he knows it. And he doesn't sign the relief bill. And he doesn't veto it. So he knows nothing will happen. There is a gift in this moment, and I hope you decide to accept it once and for all. It is the gift of ultimate clarity about this outgoing president. Democrats, independents, real Republicans, you all now know, just based on the last 24 hours alone, this guy is the worst ever. He is the worst president we have ever seen. Period. He has not only proven to be incompetent, but he is indeed truly inhumane. He has denied the hungry. He has denied our warriors. He has denied a pandemic, and he does not give a damn about anything but lying about it all and faking his own greatness. That is the truth. It is demonstrated by everything we have seen. It must be his legacy. And those who have ignored and empowered him, those who have solicited this brand of his own horrible actions towards others, are complicit. He must be remembered as the worst, if only for this alone, and if only this is what we had seen, it would already make him the worst. On top of years of perfidy, of deceit, of lies, of viciousness towards those who need protection consistently. You literally have seen nothing to feel any other way, and yet you do. But no more. This has to be a bottom. He must be seen as the worst, and we must run away from him and this type of behavior as fast as we ever have collectively as a country before. Anybody who wants to continue his kind of just crooked ways must be condemned, and early, because this cannot be repeated. That would be a shame on us. The headliners he pardoned tonight, those who kept their mouths shut. Family, by extension. Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, and Charles Kushner. That is the father of his son-in-law, Jared. Law and order, the pro-law enforcement president. Give me a break. He just undid hard work of law enforcement who made the cases against these crooks. This country pursued justice against those who did wrong. He just undid it. Not because there are new reckonings in the case, but because it's all about him and saving face. Both Stone and Manafort were indicted by special counsel Bob Mueller. They went to trial. They were convicted by juries of multiple crimes. Stone, a longtime ally, Manafort, his former campaign chair, and Kushner. You may not know about him, but I'll give you the thumbnail. That's all you need to know. He pleaded guilty to tax evasion and retaliating against a federal witness and lying to the FEC. He was prosecuted in the early 2000s by then U.S. Attorney Chris Christie. And then Christie, of course, became Trump transition chair. So what's so bad about that? It's the guy's, it's the father-in-law, it's his brother and son-in-law's father. I mean, isn't that the right thing? Kushner is no ordinary white-collar criminal. This man set up his own brother-in-law with a prostitute and then sent the video to his sister. That is the kind of thing that only Trump would see a pardon available. He commuted Stone's sentence for obstruction of Congress, threatening a witness earlier this year before he was set to surrender. We know why he did it. Roger Stone is many things, but one of them is loyal to those that he sees as on his side. Trump returned the favor. Manafort has been home serving confinement after COVID. This is no mercy pardon. These are rewards. You notice what Manafort never did, right? Never talked about Trump. Not a word. Republican Senator Ben Sasse put out a statement tonight calling it all rotten to the core. Welcome to the party, brother. Welcome to the party. Time is over for your delicate dance. Sasse, you've got a great future in your party. You have a potential future in this country. You should have been saying that all along. And by the way, Sasse has been one of the most rational. We now should have clarity. Trump is the worst. We have never seen anything like this. This kind of insensitivity to humanity. This disrespect of justice. He is literally no friend to justice. And he's a president. Think about it. The pardons have implications, and we will discuss them tonight with some of the best minds in the business. But you have to just keep your eye on the urgency that this president has just ignored. The man has gone to Florida after blowing up the relief bill. He won't sign it. He stalled it. He did veto pay for troops, so at least Congress can work on overriding it. But if you're going to do something about the relief bill, you got to do it. Walk the walk. Why didn't you veto the bill? Why didn't you then, if you're not going to veto it, tell McCarthy to meet Pelosi on the floor and vote it out? Why didn't you make a deal? Why did you leave? Why did you leave? If you believe in a God, I don't care what your religion is. Who does this? By all accounts, you are not working on a deal. Every day you golf. Every day you delay is another day of paralyzing pain in a country that you owe. And you know this. And you won't veto so that there can be some kind of action. You won't tell your minions to meet Pelosi. Why? What is this about? Who did you really do this for? How can the answer not be you? How can the truth not be that you wanted to look the part of the hero just when you're trying to undo democracy? Even though you know you were torpedo a compromise that has been months in the making that you ignored while your people helped negotiate. It is the worst thing you could do in this situation. And you made this situation. You ignored this pandemic. You made a bad play. You thought if you ignored it, it would go away and the economy would be okay and you would win, and you were wrong. And you doubled down on dumb. And this time, it bit all of us in the ass. And then you leave, almost assuring no action on the relief. At least you vetoed the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, so you can set up a possible override. Yeah, it's going to pit members of your party against each other, but you know what? They need to do that anyway. The Republicans have to figure out what the hell they're about anymore. Are you really just Retrumplicans? You seem confused. Well, you should have clarity too. This man is the worst. He has been terrible for your party because nobody knows what the hell you're about anymore, and neither do you. Why did Trump really veto this bill? A lot of people in his own party say, well, it's to show Mitch, that Mitch should have helped him more in overturning the election. Can you imagine what it means about where the hell we are in this country that Republicans can say that with sober mind? People are starving. And what he just did with the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, is even weirder. Why? Well, he doesn't like this Section 230. This fringe. Look, of course we have to figure out what to do when it comes to what's right and wrong on the internet, and is it really like newspapers or not, and the right of a publisher, are they publishers? We have to work through it, but not this way. Not right before Christmas, not when you're going to leave town, not with people starving. He is the worst we have ever seen. And the only reason you would defend that is because you don't want to give in to the status quo. But what are you saying when you decide to reject the status quo by making it worse, by injecting the political equivalent of a virus into our political corpus? And that's what Trump is. He is not a cure. He has never been a cure. He was never going to be a cure. He was injected as a virus to make the system sick, and he has. And now we are on our knees in this country. And the only chance for us to get to a better place is to recognize what we have had all along. The ability to come together, to be about a common cause, and to demand better from the men and women that we invest with power to do our business. If you expect nothing, you get this. We must change. Let it be a gift to us before this Christmas. He is the worst. We must get better.
It is Friday, the 25th of December of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Blue Moon Spirits Christmas Day Friday. Hey, Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. I hope it's treating you well. I know that we're locked down for the most part. Do take care. Wear a mask wherever you can, and also where you should. And try to social distance even when you are among family of the same genetic background. Otherwise, how would you be family? Anyway, take care. We will be doing that. I'm going to go to my sister's for dinner. But we have been taking care in the midst of all this. So we'll see how it goes. And it should be okay. My sister gets tested regularly, as well as the other members of the family, even though that's not always a given that you're okay. But we'll see. Hey, what else is going on in the world? Pardons galore. The resonance, the outrage is still resonating from Trump's pardons. Yeah, mercy and grace. Everything is transactional with that guy. Everything. So, I guess it's like a Christmas gift to a bunch of crooks and murderers. And that's what makes America great again. Some people would argue, yeah, well, you know, criminals and murderers, what else would America be? I mean, considering that we were pretty much a penal colony, that's what the Brits looked at us. Yeah, let's send all those scafflaws over there. They're not following the rules here. Put them on an island, a big continent. Just get them away from here. And they did. They got rid of us. And we made America what it is today. So I guess we shouldn't be sorry. Or should we? Okay, Christmas Day. And then it's going to be a new year. And then 20 days after that, I hope it's a new world. I have a fear that it's just going to be worse. It's going to get worse as it gets to Inauguration Day. And then on Inauguration Day, what is he going to do? I don't know. Pull up a bunch of military gear during the inauguration and fire away like I was thinking of Sadat. Yeah. Let's hope it's not a Sadat type thing. I wouldn't put it past this guy. And when we do have to remember one other thing, too. I know the military leadership said the military will not be behind any coup attempt that this guy wants to attempt. But that doesn't mean that there are some lone wolves who seem to all be in a group. It's a pack of lone wolves. Will join him in this endeavor, wearing military uniforms and driving military equipment. They won't care how heavy a tank is in Washington, D.C. streets. No, not then. They have a whole other idea in mind. Yep, they do. I guess then our hope is that military leadership will then probably step in and take those guys out. But I expect there to be some mutineers from the military and join this treasonous, seditious insurrectionist. I guess you can put those all together. He will be a private citizen, and I believe the full force of the law should apply. All right. I was wondering, though, if a former president of the United States does foment insurrection and actually goes to fight it, does the Secret Service have to still protect him? I don't know. You know, these are questions no one has ever asked. Ever. They never thought they had to. Yeah, only the good people will be able to run for president because the great American people will prevent the bad people from by the power of their vote. And so what happened? Well, a minority party who has a lot less in terms of numbers in votes were able to game the system so that the vast majority of the people who would have made sure that a criminal crook, mobbed up treasonous Russian money launderer like Trump would never got to the primaries, let alone, running for president and becoming so. And do I blame Mitch McConnell? I don't know. We might have to blame, I don't know who. Hastert? Earlier than that. Hyde? Earlier than that. I guess we have to start blaming the Republicans around the New Deal or before. Because they've been fighting every social change and anything that would allow due process and equal protection for all from being due process and equal protection for all. They've been fighting it every step of the way, and here we are. We have a Supreme Court that might as well be an inquisition. So, and that's just my way of saying they're white Christian nationalists. So, and it will be an inquisition court, I'm sure, given time. John Roberts won't be able to be Chief Justice forever. They're going to get their Tucumando, and they'll get, and then it will really, really be fun. Let's hope not. Now, Trump and Barr. Now, Barr is out. Barr quit yesterday, I believe. That was his last official day. But regardless, this push to execute these prisoners. Now, there's 5 more they want to execute by the 1st. Or no, I'm sorry, I guess not by the 1st. It would still be by Inauguration Day. So they got a few weeks to be able to pack it in. Joe is a Catholic. And Joe is against the death penalty. So it kind of bothers me when I read these tweets and proclamations by Rose Twitter. Why won't Kamala and Joe come out against the death penalty? And then you show them that, yeah, they have. They go, yeah, but that's just through legislation. What? I don't know. There's no arguing with them. As soon as you give them some evidence, they got something else to whine about. Sounds like a gish galop to me. Sure does. Or is it Gish Gallop? I like Gish Gallop, but I think it's Gish Gallop. Load them up on the info, and when they're trying to prove that info, you got some more little tidbits of pearl clutching to give them. You didn't cross that T and dot that I. Yes, I did. No, you didn't. Okay, fine. I didn't, even though it's right there. Oh, boy, Christmas Day. Lots of people are taking the day off, and good thing. Now, here at the mothership, nothing's happening. That's why we're doing a show. The show must go on, and it is a calling of sorts. You know, we do actually have a curated show here for you today. At the top, of course, that was the Cuomo kid just laying down the law that really there's no argument. Trump is the worst president ever, period. There's no argument about that. And on the rest of the menu, in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. Massachusetts ended a controversial license plate surveillance system after discovering a glitch that caused inaccurate data to be recorded for more than 5 years. Okay. Online store Printify has stopped selling merchandise supporting KK Kyle Rittenhouse. That kid just, and that family, that whole ideology actually just burns me up. And a statue of white supremacist Edward Douglas White Jr. has been removed from the front steps of the Louisiana Supreme Court. About time. But it hasn't really left the premises, unfortunately. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe apologized to Parliament for lying his ass off about a political funding scandal. You know, he just quit recently for health reasons. I wonder why. And with the Paris choir in hard hats, the fire-ravaged Notre Dame Cathedral rang in Christmas morning. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, to the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the left of that chat room link near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon page, and this is Christmas. All right. Should I give the gift of just going past this part of the spiel that you get every day, 5 days a week for West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? I apologize for it, but we're not a media empire like Fox, even Sinclair or even OAN. My God. Anyway, we don't truck in hate. All right. Now, some pointed criticism, certainly, in hopefully a humorous and entertaining way, but we are able to do this not on a shoestring. We don't do it with shoestrings and cans, all right? But we are able to stretch dollars beyond compare. We're quantum mechanics when it comes to doing that. If you could possibly afford an espresso-type coffee drink and send those funds to us once a week, I mean, once a month. Once a week would be great, but once a month, okay? Once again, we are able to stretch those dollars. And I'll just quickly say, pay our bills and fly under the radar, continue resisting as the founders originally intended. And thank you for your generosity. And thank you for possibly the generosity in the future. It's sort of kind of like a minority report. Thank you. Okay. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. And thank you, Tom, for doing that. And, of course, so much more. I, of course, take care of me. There's no one left. And you can follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. And I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Codes. Get that linked up on Twitter and all the other social media platforms that are out there. And you can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. And most importantly, pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. And one other thing, if they ask you to review, that will then obviously push the show up in whatever the search engines they have now. Because I hear maybe Google might get broken up, sort of like the old AT&T thing. We'll see how that works out. Because then we'll just get like something like Spectrum. I know that has nothing to do with Google, but you never know. They like to diversify. In other words, become a monopoly. I don't know what it is about that particular economic drive, but it does. It does that. Okay, let's get into this first offering. Yeah, was dive into the offering, tuck into this offering. Now we're just going to get into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Oh, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, I forgot to mention. Even on Christmas Day, the French 77 is the cocktail of choice here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And they're all virtually poured and ready for your virtual imbibing pleasure. The most balanced cocktail in the history of cocktails, and that's not an opinion. That is a fact. Okay, this first offering here comes out of the Associated Press. Oh, and it's by anonymous worker bees. Yeah, it's the holidays. Massachusetts has ended the use of a controversial license plate surveillance system after discovering a glitch that caused inaccurate data to be recorded for more than 5 years, according to a report obtained by the Boston Globe. The inaccuracies were found in a network of mounted, fixed high-speed cameras installed by the state police that took photos of license plates of passing vehicles. You know, like Big Brother. The state's Executive Office of Public Safety and Security issued a memo that said the problem was discovered on November 12 by state police officials reviewing data collected. Oh, really? They turned themselves in? They weren't really cops, I guess. The officials said the dates and timestamps for some of the entries were inaccurate. Wow. For 5 years, they would go off of this inaccurate data. No wonder they break down doors of the wrong apartment when they have the no-knock warrants and kill people in their sleep. The data collected included location, date, and time, and was used for criminal investigations, and in some cases to find suspects in real time without obtaining warrants or court orders. Like with facial recognition and other newer forms of surveillance, there's too many risks that something will go wrong. And if this is left entirely to the executive branch of the government to run in secret, said Kay Crockford, Director of Technology for Liberty program at the ACLU of Massachusetts, we have to remember that these technologies are not perfect, and they are never going to be perfect. State officials declined to directly answer questions or provide more details. Well, I guess they are cops after all. We attempt to put ourselves in a bubble here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. So, because there's so much news out there, and we do attempt to have a curated show, the world in real time does intrude upon our bubble and puncture it, pierce it. And I should mention that there has been a vehicle bombing in Nashville causing tremendous damage, and officials are considering that it is an intentional act. And if you've seen the photographs, this is a Murrow building type of explosion, it looks like. And considerable damage from what I was able to see from the various photographs that have been taken on the ground. So stay tuned to Netroots Radio throughout the day as more of details arise, and the live feeds will be picking that up, and we may have to break in and give you a bit of updates while that's happening, even though it's Christmas. All right, this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is by even more anonymous worker bees at the Associated Press, because I guess it's Christmas. An online sales company has stopped selling merchandise supporting an Illinois teen who killed 2 people and wounded a third during a protest in Wisconsin this summer. The Kenosha News reported that Kyle Rittenhouse's family began selling free Kyle merchandise through Printify last week. Printify creates custom products for designers and sells them online. The company tweeted that it has terminated the Rittenhouse's family account because it violates a policy banning content that promotes or condones violence. And there's nothing more like promoting white supremacy to be a violation of terms of use. Well, at least one of these companies has those. We have chosen to discontinue our business relationship with this store in order to mitigate business risk, the company said in a statement. Ultimately, we don't want to be affiliated with a store that's involved in such a complex, controversial, and ongoing case. Well, that's a nice way of saying this kid, Kyle, is a white supremacist and a terrorist murderer. Prosecutors have accused Rittenhouse, a white 17-year-old, of opening fire on Anthony Huber, Joseph Rosenbaum, and Gage Grosskreutz during a protest in Kenosha on August 25. The protest was sparked after a white police officer shot Jacob Blake, who is black, in the back 7 times during a domestic dispute. Well, that's one way of putting it. He stopped with his kids because they were going to a birthday party for one of his kids, and he broke up a fight between a couple. And because he didn't necessarily know the cops were telling him, because he was black, to whatever it is, put your hands up, he got in his car with his kids, and while he's getting in the car with his kids, they shot him 7 times on the back, and he's paralyzed now. And Rittenhouse came from out of state with an illegal gun bought with a ghost purchase by his mother, with the help of a few friends who are now in jail for it, by the way. Crossed state lines to kill people, and he did. And now he's becoming quite the little moneymaker. He's an earner. Final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Blue Moon Spirits Christmas Day Fridays is brought to us by even more anonymous worker bees of the holiday staff at the Associated Press. The Louisiana Supreme Court has moved a statue of Edward Douglas White Jr. from its front steps. White was the 9th Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court and was the only Louisiana justice ever on that court until Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation this year. Oh, it's good to see that she comes from such esteemed lineage. Well, he also fought for white supremacy and upheld racial segregation laws. I guess she's got a lot to live up to now, doesn't she? Protesters and most members of the New Orleans City Council have called for removing the larger-than-life statue, and it was moved from its pedestal on Wednesday, and a court spokesman said it will be placed indoors near the court's museum because they can't quit. Court spokesman Robert Gunn did not say why the statue is being moved, only that the justices decided unanimously that it should. A brief factual statement about Chief Justice White's accomplishments and his legacy to contextualize his judicial service will be displayed near the statue. Security fences had protected the statue since large demonstrations against it in June. White was a teenager when he fought in the Confederate Army, and 29 when he fought in a deadly white supremacist uprising in 1874 during Reconstruction. He was a U.S. Supreme Court Justice from 1894 until his death in 1921, voting with a majority on Plessy v. Ferguson and other decisions upholding racial segregation and stripping black Americans of civil rights. Like I said, Amy has quite a legacy to live up to now, doesn't she? But I'm sure she's going to try. All right, that brings us to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world. And we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you on this grand Christmas Day. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, Citizen Mank. It's a truism that Hollywood loves movies about itself. While not an Academy category yet, David Fincher's Mank would be a shoo-in nominee. Based on a script by Fincher's now-deceased father, Mank tells the story behind the legendary film Citizen Kane. However, Mank isn't about the film's luminary, Orson Welles, whose career has been often dissected, but rather it's about the movie's writer, Herman Mankiewicz, a.k.a. Mank. Laid up with a broken leg and losing a battle with alcoholism, Mank is a veteran hack who's been hired to write the screenplay for young upstart Welles' directorial debut. For reasons unknown, legendary publishing tycoon William Randolph Hearst was the inspiration for Charles Foster Kane. In the portrayal here, we not only learn why he did it, but the effect that Hearst, Willie to his friends, had, not just for Mank, but for the 1934 California governor's race in which the Democrats ran journalist Upton Sinclair, which upset the big Hollywood bosses, and Willie. Mank, played by Gary Oldman in a sure-to-be nominated performance, is a man caught between ideals and a paycheck. The fact that the 62-year-old Oldman is playing a man who was in his early 40s may seem odd, but he actually does resemble the rum-soaked Mankiewicz. Another standout performance is Amanda Seyfried as Hearst's mistress, Marion Davies, who was given rough treatment in Citizen Kane as Susan, Kane's much younger second wife, whose singing career is aborted due to lack of talent. Seyfried's Davies, arguably the most sympathetic character in Mank, comes across as intelligent and sincerely in love with Hearst. Shot on film in black and white and mimicking the cinematography and editing style of the period, Mank is one not to miss. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Karen Hopkin. If there's one thing we can all agree on, it's that taking care of babies is a demanding business. New parents are always on duty, and late-night feedings and fussing leave caregivers chronically sleep-deprived. Turns out, the issue's not unique to humans, because the same thing happens to bees. Researchers found that worker bees who care for the brood get less sleep than their sisters, because bee babies produce chemicals that keep their caretakers awake. The findings appear in the journal Current Biology. It seems that all animals sleep, including the birds and the bees. Yet this daily phenomenon still remains blanketed in mystery.
The exact function of sleep is still an enigma, but we know that reduced or sleep loss is associated with reduced performance, health, and survival.
Moshe Nagari was a postdoc at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem when he started studying sleep. In particular, he was curious about how animals can sometimes sacrifice shut-eye when they've got important work to do, especially moms tending to their young.
Killer whale mothers, for example, follow their calves for the first few weeks postpartum and hardly ever sleep in this time for several weeks.
Rather than swimming along with killer whales for a couple of months, Nagari focused his attention on bumblebees. In these colonies, a queen lays the eggs, and worker bees called nurses care for the resulting hatchlings. To start, Nagari confirmed that when nurses were housed with larvae, they slept significantly less than bees who didn't have babies to attend to.
So our first intuition was that the larvae are constantly signaling to the nurse bees that they are hungry, and this signaling is what's keeping the nurse bees awake.
So the researchers replaced the larvae with pupae, a developmental stage that doesn't require constant feeding.
And to our surprise, we found that nurse bees with pupae slept even less than the bees that were housed with feeding larvae.
These babies, it seemed, needed the bee equivalent of swaddling.
Indeed, in our observations, we saw that the nurses were incubating the pupae at the expense of sleep.
What's more, the babies didn't even have to be there. It seems that simply surrounding the nurses with the cocoons in which the pupae had been resting was enough to keep the caregivers awake and on their toes, which suggests that baby bees secrete a chemical that does the work of a late-night cup of coffee.
If this interpretation is true, this is the first evidence that pheromones from juveniles can modulate the sleep of caregiver adults in any animal,
keeping adult bees from getting their Z's. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Karen Hopkin.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Ho, ho, ho! Wait till you hear about the gifts I gave to some of America's power elites for Christmas. To each of our Congress critters, I sent my fondest wish that from now on they receive the exact same income, health care, and pensions that we average citizens get. If they receive only the American average, it might make them a little bit more humble and less cavalier about ignoring the needs of regular folks. To the stockings of GOP leaders who've so eagerly debased themselves to serve the madness of Donald Trump, I added individual spritzer bottles of fragrances like Essence of Integrity and Eau de Self-Respect to help cover up their stench. And in the stockings of Democratic congressional leaders, I put Spice of Viagra and Bouquet du Grassroots to stiffen their spines and remind them of who they represent. For America's CEOs, my gift is a beautifully boxed brand new set of corporate ethics. It's called the Golden Rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Going to pollute someone's neighborhood? Then you have to live there too. Going to slash wages and benefits? Then slash yours as well. Going to move your manufacturing to sweatshops in China? Then put your office right inside the worst sweatshop. Executive life won't be as luxurious, but CEOs would glow with a new purity of spirit. To the Wall Street hedge fund hucksters who've conglomerated, plundered, and degraded hundreds of America's newspapers, I've sent copies of Journalism for Dummies and offered jobs for each of them in their stripped-down Dickensian newsrooms. Good luck to each. This is Jim Hightower saying, and what better gift to the Trump family, Donald, Ivanka, and Jared, Eric, Donnie Jr., and the whole nest of them, than to wish that they live with each other constantly and permanently. No, really, no need to thank me. Each of you deserve it.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
This Civil Liberties Minute is the second in a series about the president's pardon power. I'm Bill Newman. According to Harvard Law professor Jack Goldsmith, of the 65 pardons that President Trump had bestowed as of December 23rd, he's given 60 to people who have helped him politically or who have personal ties to him, including family, like Charles Kushner, and political operatives who had lied to the FBI to protect him, like Roger Stone, and his first national security advisor, Michael Flynn, and white-collar thieves who had politically supported him, like former California Congressman Duncan Hunter. Worth noting, a president wielding his pardon power near the end of his term is not unprecedented. Bill Clinton issued 175 pardons his last day in office, including one to his half-brother Roger for drug charges and one, to wide criticism, to Mark Rich, a fugitive and financier whose ex-wife had donated a chunk of money to the future Clinton Presidential Library. So, the Constitution's broad power to grant pardons and commutations allows the pardons, but that fact does not necessarily end the story. Because when it comes to pardons, Congress definitely can investigate and perhaps can legislate as well. And some legal scholars argue that if there was a quid pro quo for a pardon, such an action could violate federal criminal law and put the people involved at risk. Which means that chapters in the story of Trump's pardons may well remain to be written. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU, because freedom can't protect itself. I'm dreaming of a white, non-sectarian, non-denominational, non-government-sponsored late December holiday. Hey, honey, come quick. It's the ACLU Carolers.
I'm singer-songwriter Patty Larkin, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
'Tis the season, the silly season, the time of year when some claim that the ACLU is against Christmas because we and other groups that believe in religious freedom fight to maintain the First Amendment guarantee of a wall of separation between church and state. Separation of church and state means that religious symbols, including a creche, that's a structure depicting baby Jesus in the manger, can be displayed on private property, but that public property is reserved for all the people and not one specific religion. It is the First Amendment's Establishment Clause that prohibits the government from endorsing, favoring, supporting, or trying to establish a national religion. The other half of the guarantee of religious freedom in America is the First Amendment's Free Exercise Clause. The Free Exercise Clause guarantees the right to observe and celebrate Christmas and freely exercise religious beliefs and to sing or not sing. So may your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the American Civil Liberties Union, because freedom can't defend itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1921. That was the day that President Warren G. Harding ordered former presidential candidate and socialist labor leader Eugene V. Debs released from prison. The Socialist Party leader had been convicted of sedition in 1918 and sentenced to 10 years in prison for an anti-war speech he made in Canton, Ohio earlier that year. He noted in that speech, quote, "Wars throughout history have been waged for conquest and plunder, and that is war in a nutshell. The master class has always declared the wars. The subject class has always fought the battles. To turn your back on the corrupt Republican Party and the corrupt Democratic Party, the gold dust lackeys of the ruling class, counts for something. It counts still more to join a minority party that has an ideal, that stands for a principle and fights for a cause." His arrest and conviction was part of a wider crackdown against dissent during World War I of anti-war activists, including the Socialist Party, the IWW, labor unions, and immigrants. From his jail cell, he won close to 1 million votes on the Socialist Party ticket in the 1920 presidential elections. He was also stripped of his citizenship, posthumously restored in 1976. On the day of his release, the warden ignored prison regulations and opened every cell block to allow more than 2,000 inmates to gather in front of the main jail building to say goodbye to Eugene Debs. According to historian Howard Zinn, as he walked down the walkway from the prison, a roar went up. He turned, tears streamed down his face, and he stretched out his arms to the other prisoners. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Blue Moon Spirits Christmas Day Friday. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently just ticked down to 34 degrees Fahrenheit, with a rain shower currently falling, and we'll continue to have periods of rain today with a high in the mid-40s. And rainfall should be today around a half an inch, with another half an inch falling tonight, with lows in the mid to upper 30s. Winds will increase out of the south at 5 to 10 miles per hour. We are in an active wind advisory, though it shouldn't be coming up to this neck of the woods in Rogue River. It's mostly going to be down in the Ashland, Medford part of the county, but there is still an active wind advisory, and part of that advisory is that there could be power outages, and that would just be great on Christmas Day, wouldn't it? Don't you do it, nature? Don't you do it? Well, it looks like tomorrow we're going to get about, maybe a quarter inch of rain throughout the day with showers and some sunshine late in the day. Highs should be in the mid-40s with winds decreasing to light and variable. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon have now increased to 5,487. So that's almost a 60 case increase, and the confirmed deceased have now ticked back up to 64. And I have to, once again, speculate, though I think the speculation is pretty much on point, and these numbers are vast undercounts because they are attributing deaths from respiratory failure to respiratory failure not caused by COVID. And they wouldn't have died unless they were, unless they had COVID. So I'm just, they're undercounts. Let's just be clear. Pollen right outside the window here at the mothership in Rogue River proper is rated at none. The air quality index for the region is good at 34 parts per million, and the daytime UV index remains in its wintertime low gradient at 1. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.88 inches. Visibility is at 4 miles, and relative humidity is at 98%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. We will consider the P-tape here at the weather report maybe changing, because it's really just a little sarcastic recognition of another P-tape that's been out there with steely eyes. Indeed. Well, speaking of steely eyes, London, if you can get that connection, London is 38 degrees and sunny. Paris is 42 and mostly cloudy. Rome is 56 and partly cloudy. Kyiv is 38 and cloudy. Kabul is 38 and mostly cloudy. Hong Kong is 61 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 42 and clear. Sydney, Australia is 65 degrees and cloudy. San Francisco, California is 50 degrees with a heavy rain shower. And New York, New York is 53 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. Anthony Slodowski of Reuters brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on Friday today corrected statements he had made in Parliament. Corrected, oh, you mean he admitted to lying? And he was apologizing for what he said were mistakes regarding a political funding scandal that has also cast a pall over the current premier. Abe said he felt deeply responsible for making repeated false denials. Oh, you mean he lied? That his political funding group had subsidized cherry blossom viewing parties for his supporters, in possible violation of the country's strict political funding laws. Japan's longest-serving leader said he had known nothing about the payments and pledged to work to regain public trust. The apology came after his secretary was, on Thursday, summarily indicted over the issue and fined a little less than $10,000 U.S. Even though the accounting procedures happened without my knowledge, I feel morally responsible for what happened, Abe told a parliamentary committee. I reflect on this deeply and apologize from my heart to the citizens and to all lawmakers. Well, what about your soul? Abe also filed corrected political funding reports for the last 3 years. The public apology marks a sharp reversal of fortune for Abe, a political blue blood whose grandfather and great-uncle also served as premiers. He quit as prime minister on health grounds in September after serving nearly 8 years as prime minister. Health grounds? Well, that's what he said. The scandal threatens to damage his successor, Yoshihide Suga, who was Abe's right-hand man throughout his term and defended his former boss in Parliament.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Anonymous holiday staff at Reuters brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. For the first time since a fire that nearly destroyed it, the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris played host to a Christmas Eve choral concert, an annual tradition in France. In a concession to the fact that the Gothic cathedral is still being rebuilt, the choristers wore construction hard hats and boiler suits, and there was no audience. The concert was recorded at the cathedral earlier this month and was broadcast on French television just before midnight last night. The choristers performed classical pieces by composers Mozart and Schubert, but also more light-hearted repertoire, including Jingle Bells. The cathedral, a landmark of Gothic architecture dating to the 13th century and a major tourist attraction, caught fire on April 15th of 2019. The blaze destroyed the spire and the roof. French President Emmanuel Macron undertook to restore the cathedral within 5 years, but to date, most work on the site is focused on making the building safe, including cleaning up toxic lead from the roof and spire that melted in the fire. All right, well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week, but you do know Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we're going to meet up on Monday for River City Hash Monday, so do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day, all night, and all weekend for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here on Monday, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.